Elisabeth is a mum of 2 young girls, a proud TERF sympathiser, and a retired lawyer with 25 years' experience. Amongst other campaigns, Elisabeth arranged for a group of women to go to an event called A Conversation on Women's Advancement with Australia's first and only so far female Prime Minister Julia Gillard to see if they could ask her some questions. She, Biddy O'Loughlin, and the rest of TERF world are still waiting for her to answer the question, what is a woman? And whether she regrets removing girls' and women's sex-based rights from the Sex Discrimination Act. Elisabeth's legal experience is across a range of areas, and she has worked in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal and in the Federal Court. She has worked for the equivalent of the Crown Solicitors for both the Northern Territory and most recently with the ACT Government Solicitor, a completely captured organisation. Elisabeth has hosted spaces on X during the Deeming and Pursuto matter, and her favourite writer is Jonathan Swift and his essay A Modest Proposal, which inspires her to always do better on developing solutions to improve society's ills. Welcome, and over to Elisabeth.
Thanks, Janet, and thank you, everyone. So we're talking about the hero's journey of Moira Deeming today. She managed to get into Parliament. Everything was going really well. She did an amazing maiden speech on women's sex-based rights, and then it all went to custard on the 18th of March of 2023 when she attended the Let Women Speak rally in Melbourne, which is now notorious amongst TERF world and notorious amongst the political world now as well, because she got the scalp of the year in Australia when it comes to horrible men. Mr. Pursuto, who lost his position as the Victorian Liberal leader on the 29th of December. Anyway, so early Christmas present to Moira Deeming last year on the 12th of December. Justice O'Callaghan of the Federal Court found the former Victorian Liberal leader, and as he liked to refer to himself, Victoria's alternative premier, John Pursuto, had defamed her as a Nazi and awarded her a total of $315,000. It was $300,000 and then $15,000 interest. She had offered to settle the matter January, February of 2024 for $100,000, and because of that, he is going to be up for the majority of her costs. Defamation John, as he's now known, Defo Jono. I like to say he always talked like, he was Churchillian, Winston Churchill. This is my destiny. I am a modern, inclusive leader. And I think he was not a man of destiny, but he certainly met his destiny when he met with Moira Deeming and Justice O'Callaghan. So the exact defamation findings, so on the costs issue, so he's going to be up for millions of legal costs, both of his own and hers. Normally you might get up to 70% of your legal costs, but because he rejected what was a reasonable offer and she got more than that, he'll be up for anywhere from 90 to 100% of her costs from January, February last year, which is another, good on you, John. Well done. We're very impressed with you. I'm not a leader of destiny, John Pursuto. Yeah, it's quite funny. So the judge found that he had defamed Moira as being unfit to be in the Parliamentary Liberal Party and the Liberal Party because she knowingly associated with neo-Nazis and Nazis. She sympathised with neo-Nazis and white supremacists and helped promote Nazi, white supremacist and ethno-fascist views. So he went on a media blitz after the Let Women Speak rally. So Let Women Speak rally happens on the Saturday. All explodes on the Sunday for her. He has this, what I call the Star Chamber in the afternoon, where basically he says, you either resign or I'm gonna move for your expulsion. Then he does the media release on the Sunday night where the judge referred to her as a neo-Nazi associate, with Angie Jones being in the panelist room tonight. We have a very important guest here, or presenter. And then on the Monday, and through the court, I think on the Monday he went on a media blitz. He did an interview on 3AW. He did an interview with the ABC. And then that's right, the dossier. He leaked the dossier to The Age, which had all the other defamatory imputations. And then he did the press conference. I don't know if that was on the Monday or it was later in that week. I think it was post the meeting. So he moved to expel her. The obvious thing is calling someone a Nazi is really bad. And that was found to be so by the judge. And the judge found that he had no basis at all to find that she was any of those things. And demonstrably, she was never any of those things because Kelly J. Keane and Angela Jones were none of those things. And the whole case basically rested on Kelly J. Keane and her wide-ranging interviews with people perhaps that you'd normally not want to be interviewed by, but when it was obviously when you looked at it, it wasn't that she agreed with any of the statements of these people she'd been interviewed or stood next to, that it was clear that she abhorred that ideology. And with Angie Jones and her tweet, I'm just realizing I'm weaving a little bit here. So anyway, Angie Jones, because I'm looking at you, Angie, I feel like talking about you in particular. Angie Jones has the notorious tweet, was it women and Nazis don't like pedo filth or pedo scum or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm getting the wording wrong, Angie. I know it's important, that wording as well. Why don't you? And yes, Edie White, who I think I saw in the chat, has done a brilliant Substack on just before Christmas, and subsequently an article in The Spectator going through the ridiculousness of the case that Pasuto and his counsel put on about how there was this link. It was reasonable for him to draw a link between the neo-Nazis that attended the rally and had the banner, pedo filth, and the attendees of the Let Women Speak rally, because of Angie Jones' tweet, because something Kelly J. Keane had said in a video. Sorry, Edie White addresses some of these, but the issue and the very long bow that the judge infamously raised with the counsel during the hearing is, what is the link between the neo-Nazis and the Let Women Speak rally? And one of the big arguments they put on was that you had Angie Jones talking about pedos. There was an obvious link that all LGBTQ women's rights advocates against some of this trans ideology always said that, your transphobia means you're a pedophile. And then Kelly J. Keane had said some stuff about transsexuals and transgenderism and pedophilia or paraphilia. And then a couple of other things too, which I'll go through. So anyway, it was bizarre. Judge said it's a load of crock, basically, in his decision. It was a slam dunk. He was so appalled by it. He really was in the judgment. And the defences available to Pasuto are ones that are applicable to journalists, politicians, mass media, and include the public interest. And one of the reasons why it wasn't necessarily people didn't think it would be, even after seeing the hearing and seeing how badly it had gone for him, that there was still a chance that he could get up, is that there are such robust defences available to politicians and mass media in being able to say things about politicians. So she's a politician, he's a politician. You can say a lot of really awful things about politicians and not actually be found to have defamed them. I mean, we all say a lot of things about politicians, but what you can't do is say that we now have it established. You can't actually say that a politician is a Nazi or neo-Nazi or white supremacist or ethno-fascist when it's not actually true, even if you have all these wonderful defences. So the test or the hurdle for him to get over was a lot lower, and she, for her to get over was a lot higher. For him to get over was a lot lower. And she got over it really easily because the evidence was so appalling for him. It was so appalling. Oh my goodness. I still remain shocked to this day how appalling he and his collaborators behaved in this matter. I've said on Spaces on X before, I went into this hearing thinking that they had just done a really sloppy research and had just looked at Wikipedia. But in actual fact, they had done sloppy research, but they'd done research enough that by the time he, certainly on the Monday, but certainly that Sunday, but on the Monday when he went on his media blitz, he knew what he was saying was not true. He escaped a bullet in the judgment because the judge said, generally, I do not find him a dishonest witness, but while he wasn't killed with a bullet to the head by the judge in the decision, a close reading of the decision, he was found by the judge to have been dishonest. His evidence was untrue. He was gratuitously offensive and shameful in relation to the evidence that he gave about Moira Deeming's bad reputation. And then, as I said, careful reading would show that he behaved incredibly appallingly. One of the things that came out of the judgment for me as a TERF that I found really interesting and felt good as a TERF is how successful Moira Deeming and her counsel had been in convincing the judge that advocating for women's sex-based rights and against the gender mutilation, my words, of children did not automatically or mean that you are someone with a bad reputation or give succor to hateful opinions. And she had given evidence in relation to Kelly J. Keane coming to Australia, and she had given evidence that her understanding of Kelly J. Keane's advocacy at the time was it was an organisation run by Ms. Keane which advocates for the preservation and or reinstatement of reasonable biological sex-based rights, such as female-only bathrooms and change rooms, as well as against the irreversible and harmful medical transitioning practices used on gender, non-conforming, autistic and gay minors, and that the organisation was mainstream and global, etc. For me, the success of the way Deeming put the case to the judge, and she was lucky to find a judge that seemed to come to the case without any preconceived notions or real understanding and knowledge of the TERF wars and the war on women. But she put a case very successfully that the issues that Let Women Speak or other women involved in different organisations is that he was arguing that reputation meant she had a reputation of giving succor to hateful views. And what he said is it can be accepted that Mrs. Deeming's expressed views on such things as the preservation or reinstatement of biological sex-based rights and her opposition to medical transitioning practices used on gender non-conforming, autistic and gay minors are controversial or polarising. Very important. He used air quotes in the judgment, and their air quotes became very important because Angie used air quotes in the Notorious video when describing the Nazis, and they were most upset about that. So it's quite that those views are controversial and polarising in the sense that other political constituencies disagree with her on it often strongly, but that is not the same thing as saying that she had a quote bad reputation. And I think as TERFs we can take some succor from that because not only has she successfully convinced the judge that it's reasonable to advocate for those matters, but she's convinced the judge that it doesn't mean that you are a bad person, ergo, nor a Nazi. So what he also said is, he didn't say this in terms, I've got the heading, the Nazi slur is actually really bad. What he said is the imputations I have found, so the defamation that he's found John Pizzuto did, the imputations I have found to have been carried are very serious ones. In my view, as Mrs. Deeming submitted, they are inherently likely using mass media to communicate a message to the general public in Victoria to cause serious harm to Mrs. Deeming's reputation. This is especially so in circumstances where the leader of her own parliamentary party was moving for her expulsion from it. What was the interesting is the evidence led unchallenged, and this is what the judge said. Witnesses also gave unchallenged evidence of the likely impact of the publications on Mrs. Deeming's reputation. And I think it's Richard Riordan, he's one of the MPs, correct me if I'm wrong. His evidence was, in my view, an allegation of being a Nazi or a Nazi sympathiser is one of the most serious allegations that can be made about a person, and is like an allegation of being a murderer or a pedophile or a rapist. I think everyone I know in my personal and political circles would share that opinion. These sort of allegations never leave a person. Nobody wants anything to do with such a person. This was such a cruel thing to be inflicted on Mrs. Deeming. The reason I highlighted that in this talk is that I know that in Carol's case in LAG, the Australian Human Rights Expert Commission referred to LAG and Let Women Speak as neo-Nazi fascists, and I'm personally exploring making a professional conduct complaint against the solicitor and barrister for allowing this evidence to be led unchallenged and presenting. No, they didn't allow it to be led. They presented this evidence by their expert and allowed it to stay. Now, I haven't read the decision and how the AAT member dealt with it, but I did a little bit of research on this today, and there is case law and there are professional rules of conduct that you can't make a really serious claim about someone, whether it's criminal like murder, rape, or a very serious misconduct where you don't have evidence to make that assertion. And I'm interested to know what the professional bodies will make of an in-house legal team for the Commonwealth killing a witness to say that lesbians seeking to exclude a man from meeting are similar to neo-Nazis. And I think the comments in the judgment, the Deeming judgment, are very helpful for that, to show how appalling it is, and that if they had actually done the minor bit of research that was presented to show that it simply wasn't true, then they shouldn't have actually presented that evidence. So I'm keen to proceed with that. Happy to hear from Carol tonight. She has any views on that. I'm no longer practicing as a solicitor, so I'm not actually under any professional obligations to be careful in making a professional conduct allegation. As a solicitor, you can't just like you can't throw the Nazi slur around, you can't just casually say you're guilty of professional misconduct. No longer practicing. I'm going to make the claim. I just like to stir up anyway, even if it doesn't get up, because they need to be held to account. So I've got 3 more minutes. So I'll talk about, let's have a look. Yeah, so in the final days of the hearing, it was wonderful to watch from a TERF perspective, because again, Pizzuto and his counsel, I think, were actually ultimately ideologically captured, that their actual viewpoint of women advocating for sex-based rights, that all they had to say was transphobic and the judge would be on their side. And a big part of their case was how appalling Kelly J. Keane, Andrew Jones, Let Women Speak, anyone involved in this movement were. And they played a whole lot of videos from the interview with Pepe Le Pew Garapay, the ethno-white nationalist from Canada, that Kelly J. Keane did, to some other interviews, to an interview. Yeah, so lots of different videos, which were just wonderful for us to watch, including the Let Women Speak rally and all, all the wonderful speeches that happened, including the infamous was it "I'm a dickhead" or something? You only be a dickhead speech by Stasia Fry, which was apparently the most appalling speech, and one of the reasons why one should find that simply attending this rally would mean that you're a neo-Nazi. And the infamous comment made while the judge is having to watch all these videos, and I can't remember which one it was. It might have been the one. It might have been the one where Kelly J. Keane, she was having the protesters were saying, "You're a fascist, Kelly J's a fascist," and she goes, fascist is the new word for legend. And I don't know, one of the videos that came up, and the judge goes, "That what's the purpose of this?" And the young junior barrister goes on at length while stroking his beard. He's going, "Well, Your Honour, well, you see, we've got Angie Jones and her tweet, and we've got Kelly J. Keane and her talking about paraphilia and transgenderism, and we've got this and that." And the flag by the neo-Nazis saying pedo freaks and etc., etc. And the judge goes, "That's a very, very long bow." And indeed it was a very long bow for Mr. Pseudo, and he did not meet his target. Rather, Maura Deeming turned it on around at him and hit him straight in the centre. It was a wonderful thing. So that's my 20 minutes. Thank you. I hopefully will be back for some questions afterwards. I do have to go and put my children to bed, so I'll be listening, but probably won't be able to come back for another half an hour now. But I will be listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was marvellous. We really appreciate it. It was a very fascinating watch. It made me very excited to study defamation, which I'm doing right now.
All right, well done.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Elisabeth. That was wonderful.